Long before there were gods, before there were humans, before the oceans rolled and the stars shined across the night sky, there was nothing. No mountains, no rivers, no sun, no moon, no heaven, no earth. There was only an endless, silent emptiness known as chaos. Chaos was not a god in the way we imagine gods today. It was the vast void from which everything would eventually emerge. It had no shape, no beginning, and no end. It was a dark and limitless abyss, stretching beyond imagination. For an eternity, chaos existed alone. Then, something remarkable happened. From the emptiness emerged the first primordial beings, the ancient powers that would shape the universe itself. The first was Gaia, the earth. Gaia was not merely land and soil, she was life itself. Within her rested the potential for forests, mountains, valleys, and every living thing that would one day walk upon her surface. Soon after came Tartarus, a dark and terrifying realm deep beneath Gaia. It was a place of eternal darkness, far below the future world of mortals. Then appeared Eros, the force of love and creation. Eros was not the winged child seen in later myths. He was an ancient cosmic power whose influence encouraged beings to unite and create new life. From chaos also emerged Nyx, the embodiment of night, and her brother Erebus, the personification of darkness. Together, Nyx and Erebus filled the empty universe with shadows. Yet even darkness could not reign forever. From their union came Ether, the brilliant light of the heavens, and Hemera, the spirit of day. For the first time, light pierced the darkness. Day and night began their eternal cycle. The universe was awakening. As ages passed, Gaia felt lonely. She desired companionship and balance. From her own being, she created a powerful equal. She gave birth to Uranus, the sky. From her own being, she created a powerful equal. She gave birth to Uranus, the sky. Uranus stretched endlessly above her, covering the earth in a magnificent blanket of stars. For the first time, heaven embraced earth. Gaia and Uranus became partners. Together they would create the first great dynasty of divine beings. Their first children were the mighty Titans. There were 12 Titans in all. Among them were Oceanus Hyperion, Iapetus, Themis, Mnemosyne, and the youngest Titan, Cronus. The Titans were immense and powerful beings. From her own being, she created a powerful equal. She gave birth to Uranus, the sky. Uranus stretched endlessly above her, covering the earth in a magnificent blanket of stars. For the first time, heaven embraced earth. Gaia and Uranus became partners. Together they would create the first great dynasty of divine beings. Their first children were the mighty Titans. There were 12 Titans in all. Among them were Oceanus Hyperion, Iapetus, Themis Mnemosyne, and the youngest Titan, Cronus. The Titans were immense and powerful beings. Each possessed extraordinary abilities. They helped shape the world and establish the natural order of existence. For a time, it seemed that harmony would reign, but Uranus carried a deep fear within his heart. Not all of Gaia and Uranus's children were Titans. Soon Gaia gave birth to 3 terrifying giants, known as the Cyclopes. Each possessed a single eye in the center of the forehead. Though frightening in appearance, they were gifted blacksmiths and creators, and the youngest Titan, Cronus. The Titans were immense and powerful beings. Each possessed extraordinary abilities. They helped shape the world and establish the natural order of existence. For a time, it seemed that harmony would reign, but Uranus carried a deep fear within his heart. Not all of Gaia and Uranus's children were Titans. Soon Gaia gave birth to 3 terrifying giants known as the Cyclopes. Each possessed a single eye in the center of the forehead. Though frightening in appearance, they were gifted blacksmiths and creators. After them came the Hecaton Kyries. These monstrous beings each possessed 100 arms and 50 heads. Their strength was beyond imagination. The sight of these children horrified Uranus. He saw them not as family, but as threats. He feared they might one day challenge his authority. The more he looked upon them, the more his fear grew. Eventually, fear transformed into cruelty. Uranus decided that these children should never see the light of day. One by one, he imprisoned the Cyclopes and the 100-handed ones deep within Gaia's body. Far beneath the earth, they were chained in darkness. The cries of the imprisoned giants echoed endlessly through the depths. Gaia felt every scream, every chain, every wound. She was their mother, and watching her children suffer filled her with unbearable sorrow. Soon sorrow turned into anger. Gaia began plotting against Uranus. She knew that none of the imprisoned giants could escape. Only one of her Titan children could challenge the ruler of the heavens. She gathered the Titans and revealed a terrible plan from her own stone, and Metal Gaia forged a mighty sickle. Its blade gleamed with divine power. Then she spoke to her children. "Who among you will stand against your father?" The Titans trembled. None wished to challenge Uranus, none except one. The youngest Titan stepped forward. Cronus, ambitious, clever. Fearless Cronus accepted the weapon. He promised his mother that he would overthrow Uranus and end his tyranny. Together, they prepared an ambush. A rebellion was coming, and with it, the first great war within the divine family. The age of Uranus was nearing its end. The age of the Titans was about to begin. As darkness covered the world once more, Cronus hid among the shadows, gripping the divine sickle forged by Gaia above him. Uranus descended from the heavens, completely unaware that his own son was waiting. Before dawn arrived, the ruler of the sky would fall. The universe had entered its first age of conflict. Deep beneath the earth, the cries of the imprisoned Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires echoed endlessly through the darkness. Their chains rattled against the stone, and every cry pierced the heart of their mother, Gaia. Gaia could no longer bear the suffering. She had given life to these children, only to watch them imprisoned by their own father, Uranus. Each day, Uranus descended from the heavens to embrace the earth, believing his throne was secure. He ruled with immense power, but beneath that power was fear. A fear that one of his children might one day rise against him. It was that fear that had made him cruel. Gaia knew that strength alone would not defeat Uranus. She needed courage. Gathering her 12 Titan children, she spoke with a voice that shook the mountains. "My children," she said, "your brothers suffer beneath the earth. They cry out every day while your father rules without mercy. Will none of you stand against him?" Silence answered her. The Titans lowered their eyes. No one dared challenge the ruler of the heavens. Uranus was too powerful, too ancient, and now it would become the very reason for his downfall. Too terrifying. Then, from among the Titans, one figure stepped forward. The youngest son, Cronus. Unlike his brothers, Cronus possessed a sharp mind and boundless ambition. He had watched his father rule through fear, and deep inside, he believed that power belonged to those brave enough to seize it. He looked at Gaia without hesitation. "I will do it." For the first time, hope returned to Gaia's heart. From the deepest rocks of the earth, Gaia forged a magnificent weapon. It was a giant sickle with a blade harder than any metal the world would ever know. She placed it in Cronus's hands. "This weapon is not made for war," she whispered. "It is made to end a tyrant." Cronus gripped the sickle tightly. He knew that after tonight, nothing would ever be the same. As darkness spread across the newborn universe, Uranus descended once more to cover Gaia with the night sky. But hidden within the shadows lay Cronus. He waited patiently. The silence felt endless. Then, the moment came. With all his strength, Cronus leapt from his hiding place. Before Uranus could react, The Titans swung the great sickle. The strike was swift. The heavens themselves trembled. Uranus cried out in agony as he was overthrown by his own son. The reign of the Sky King had ended. Some ancient myths tell that from the blood of Uranus sprang new beings into the world, including the fearsome Erinyes, the powerful giants, and the ash tree nymphs known as the Meliae. Another famous tradition says that when part of Uranus fell into the sea, the foam gave rise to Aphrodite, who emerged from the waves in breathtaking beauty. With Uranus defeated, the heavens no longer ruled the cosmos. A new age had begun. The Titans celebrated. Cronus was crowned their king. Beside him stood his sister and queen, Rhea. Together they ruled what later poets would call the Golden Age. During this time, the world flourished. The rivers flowed peacefully. The forests grew untouched. There was no war among mortals, for humanity had not yet become burdened by suffering. The Titans governed the universe with great power, and for a while, peace seemed possible. Yet beneath the surface, an old mistake was being repeated. When Cronus seized the throne, Gaia begged him to free the imprisoned Cyclopes and hundred-handed ones. After all, they had suffered for ages. But Cronus looked upon them just as his father once had. He saw not family, but danger. Fearing their immense strength, he left them imprisoned in the depths of Tartarus. Without realizing it, Cronus had taken his father's throne and his father's sphere. Time passed. Then one day, a prophecy reached the ears of Cronus. It came from Gaia and Uranus, according to many ancient traditions. Their words were simple, yet terrifying. Just as you overthrew your father, one day, one of your own children will overthrow you. Cronus laughed at first. How could a child challenge the ruler of the Titans? But the prophecy refused to leave his mind. He remembered Uranus. He remembered the sickle. He remembered the fear in his father's eyes. Slowly, that same fear began growing inside him. Every shadow seemed suspicious. Every dream became a nightmare. Every unborn child became a potential enemy. The prophecy consumed him. Soon Rhea announced she was expecting their first child. The kingdom rejoiced. Cronus did not. When the child was born, a daughter named Hestia, Cronus held the newborn in his arms. For a brief moment, he looked into her innocent eyes. Then, without warning, he opened his mouth and swallowed her whole. The court stood frozen. Rhea screamed in horror. The child vanished into Cronus's body. Cronus believed he had defeated fate. If the child remained inside him forever, the prophecy could never come true, or so he thought. Time passed again. Rhea gave birth to another child, a daughter, Demeter. Once again, Cronus swallowed the baby. Then came another daughter, Hera. She too disappeared into Cronus. The years continued. Rhea gave birth to a son, Hades. Cronus swallowed him. Another son followed, Poseidon. He too vanished into the Titan King's endless hunger. Each birth filled Rhea with joy, and each loss shattered her heart. She was a mother who had never been allowed to raise a single child. No lullabies, no first steps, no laughter, only silence. Cronus believed he had outsmarted destiny, but destiny has a way of waiting. The more desperately he tried to escape the prophecy, the closer he came to fulfilling it. Rhea could bear no more. When she became pregnant for the 6th time, she secretly sought the help of Gaia. "My mother," Rhea whispered through tears, "I cannot lose another child." Gaia listened carefully. Then a plan began to form. A child would soon be born. A child unlike any before. A child whose name would echo through history. Zeus. And with his birth, the fate of the Titans would begin to unravel. For countless years, Rhea had lived with a pain no mother should ever know. 5 times she had given birth. 5 times she had held her newborn children in her arms. And 5 times she had watched her husband, Cronus, swallow them alive. There was Hestia, gentle and kind. Then Demeter, destined to nourish the earth. Then Hera, who would one day become Queen of Olympus. After them came Hades, and finally Poseidon. None of them had taken a single step. None had spoken their first words. All had vanished into the body of their own father. Cronus believed he had defeated the prophecy, but fate was quietly preparing its next move. When Rhea discovered she was carrying a 6th child, joy and terror filled her heart at the same time. She knew exactly what would happen if she remained beside Cronus. Her baby would disappear forever. Unable to bear another loss, Rhea climbed the ancient mountains to seek the wisdom of her mother, Gaia. Gaia listened as Rhea wept. The Earth Mother had seen generations rise and fall. She knew that no one, not even a king, could escape destiny. After a long silence, Gaia smiled. "There is still hope," she said. "But you must trust me." Together, Gaia and Rhea devised a plan bold enough to deceive the ruler of the Titans himself. As the time of birth approached, Rhea quietly left the palace without Cronus knowing. She traveled across the sea to the rugged island of Crete, a land of towering mountains, hidden caves, and dense forests. According to ancient tradition, she reached a secluded cave on Mount Ada. Though some myths place the birth in a cave on Mount Dicta. Hidden from the eyes of Cronus, surrounded by stone and silence, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Zeus. The moment he cried, Rhea held him tightly against her chest. For the first time in years, she smiled. She whispered softly, "You will live." But there was little time. Cronus would soon realize that the child had been born. Gaia handed Rhea an ordinary stone. It was heavy and roughly the size of a newborn infant. Rhea wrapped the stone carefully in soft blankets until it looked exactly like a sleeping baby. Then, with a trembling heart, she returned to Cronus. The Titan King eagerly reached out. "Give me the child." Rhea forced herself not to cry. She placed the wrapped stone into his enormous hands. Cronus never suspected a thing. Without even looking beneath the blankets, he swallowed the bundle whole. The stone disappeared into his stomach. The prophecy he believed had been defeated once again. Rhea lowered her head to hide the relief in her eyes. For the first time, one of her children had escaped. Back on Crete, baby Zeus remained hidden in the cave. Yet hiding a child was not enough. A crying infant could easily reveal his location. Ancient myths tell us that the infant was cared for by the divine goat Amalthea, whose rich milk nourished him. Other traditions describe Amalthea as a nurturing nymph rather than a goat, but both agree that she lovingly cared for the future king of the gods. Zeus also received honey from sacred bees said to dwell in the cave. The island itself seemed determined to protect him. Outside the cave stood a group of fierce young warriors known as the Korettes. Every time baby Zeus cried, the Korettes struck their bronze shields with spears and danced wildly. The crashing metal echoed across the mountains. The noise drowned out the baby's cries so that Cronus could never hear them. Day after day, year after year, the guardians never failed. As long as they kept watch, the child of prophecy remained safe. Zeus did not grow like ordinary mortals. Being a god, his strength increased rapidly. As a boy, he climbed cliffs no human could scale. He raced across the forests, faster than the wind. Thunderclouds gathered whenever his emotions surged, as though nature already recognized its future king. Gaia often visited him. She reminded him of who he truly was. "You are not hiding forever," she would say. "You are preparing." The young Zeus listened carefully. He learned patience, wisdom, leadership. Most importantly, he learned the truth about his family. He discovered that 5 brothers and sisters were still alive, not dead, not lost. They remained trapped inside Cronus, waiting. Years passed. The child became a young man, tall, powerful, confident. His presence commanded respect. His eyes burned with determination. Zeus no longer wished to remain hidden. Every sunrise reminded him that his family remained imprisoned. Every storm stirred his resolve. He climbed to the highest peak of Crete and looked toward the distant lands ruled by the Titans. It is time. Before confronting Cronus directly, Zeus sought allies. One important ally was the wise Metis, known for her intelligence and clever strategies. Metis warned Zeus that brute force alone would not defeat his father. Instead, she prepared a powerful potion. If Cronus drinks this, she said, he will be forced to give back everything he has swallowed. Zeus disguised himself and entered his father's court. In different versions of the myth, he appears as a servant or cupbearer, waiting for the perfect moment. At last, he offered Cronus a drink mixed with Metis's potion. The Titan King drank without suspicion. Moments later, a terrible pain seized him. The earth shook. The skies darkened. Cronus cried out. Then, one by one, he began to bring up the children he had swallowed. First came the stone that Rhea had wrapped in swaddling clothes. Then emerged Hestia, then Demeter, then Hera, then Hades. Finally, Poseidon. Because they were immortal gods, they emerged alive and fully grown, ready to stand beside the brother they had never met. For the first time, the 6 children of Rhea stood together. They embraced as a family at last. Cronus stared in disbelief. The prophecy he had feared for so long had begun to unfold. Every desperate attempt to prevent it had only helped bring it to life. Zeus looked directly at his father. There was no hatred in his voice, only certainty. Your reign ends today. Cronus called upon the Titans to defend their king. Zeus and his newly freed siblings prepared for battle. Across the heavens and the earth, ancient powers chose sides. The age of peace was over. The greatest war the universe had ever seen was about to begin. A war between fathers and sons, between Titans and Olympians, a war that later generations would remember as the Titanomachy. The moment Titanomacy began, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. For the first time since the dawn of creation, father stood against son. Brother fought brother. The fate of the cosmos would no longer be decided by prophecy alone. It would be decided by war. On one side stood the Titans, led by Cronus, rulers of the world for countless ages. Ancient, immense, and battle-hardened, they believed no younger generation could ever defeat them. On the other side stood 6 newly united gods: Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, Hestia. They had courage, they had justice, but compared to the Titans, they had almost no army. The Titans established their stronghold atop Mount Arthurus. From its towering heights, Cronus looked down upon the world he had ruled for ages. His voice thundered across the valleys. My children think they can replace me. They will learn what true power is. Meanwhile, Zeus led his siblings to Mount Olympus. At that time, Olympus was not yet the glorious palace we imagine today. It was simply a rugged mountain chosen as the headquarters of a desperate rebellion. The young gods stood together. Though outnumbered, none considered surrender. The first battles were devastating. Titans hurled mountains like stones. Entire forests were ripped from the earth. Rivers changed their course. The seas crashed violently against newly formed cliffs. The sky itself shook under the force of ancient magic. Zeus fought with incredible determination, but he had not yet received his famous thunderbolt. Poseidon wielded only his immense physical strength. Hades relied on strategy rather than overwhelming force. Again and again, the Olympians attacked. Again and again, the Titans pushed them back. Years passed. Neither side could claim victory. The war became a brutal stalemate. 10 long years passed. Imagine a decade in which every sunrise brought another battle. Every night ended with the cries of the wounded. The mountains bore deep scars. The oceans churned endlessly. Even Gaia, the earth herself, groaned beneath the weight of the conflict. She watched as her children and grandchildren destroyed the world she had created. At last, Gaia spoke to Zeus. If you truly wish to win, you must free those your father and grandfather feared the most. Zeus immediately understood. Deep within Tartarus remained the forgotten prisoners, the mighty Cyclopes, and the terrifying Hecatoncheires. For countless ages they had remained chained in darkness, first by Uranus, then abandoned by Cronus. No one had ever come to rescue them until now. Zeus descended into Tartarus. The air grew cold. The darkness seemed endless. At last he found the imprisoned giants. The Cyclopes looked at him with suspicion. "Why have you come?" Zeus stepped forward. "I have not come as your jailer. I have come to set you free." With tremendous effort, Zeus shattered the ancient chains. For the first time in ages, the prisoners stood beneath open skies. The Cyclopes knelt before Zeus. "You have given us freedom. Now we shall give you victory." The Cyclopes were master craftsmen unlike any the universe had ever known. Deep inside their fiery forges, they began creating weapons worthy of gods. For Zeus, they forged a weapon unlike anything ever seen. A bolt of living lightning. It crackled with the power of the heavens. It carried the fury of storms. It answered only to Zeus. The first thunderbolt had been born. For Poseidon they forged a magnificent three-pronged spear, the trident. With it, He could command every ocean. He could raise islands from the sea. He could summon earthquakes that split the earth itself. The Hades, they created a mysterious helmet, the Helm of Darkness. When worn, it rendered its owner invisible, allowing Hades to move unseen across the battlefield. These divine gifts transformed the balance of power. The Olympians were no longer merely challengers. They had become a true force. But Zeus gained another group of allies, the 100-handed ones. Each giant possessed 100 arms and unmatched strength. In battle, every arm could hurl a massive boulder. Imagine hundreds of mountain-sized rocks flying through the sky at once. No army had ever faced such power. The giants eagerly joined Zeus, not because they loved war, but because they finally had a leader who had shown them mercy. The final battle began. The heavens darkened. Lightning split the skies. Zeus hurled thunderbolts that illuminated the world like blazing suns. Each strike shattered cliffs. Each explosion echoed across the universe. Poseidon struck the ground with his trident. The seas rose into enormous waves. Earthquakes ripped through the battlefield. Entire mountains collapsed. Hidden by the Helm of Darkness, Hades moved silently among the Titans, sowing confusion and breaking their formations. The 100-handed ones unleashed an endless storm of boulders. The Titans fought with incredible courage. Cronus himself charged toward Zeus. Father and son met in a clash that shook the heavens. The battle raged without pause. Neither warrior gave ground. Then came the decisive moment. Zeus raised his thunderbolt high above his head. Every cloud gathered around him. The skies blazed with light. With a mighty cry, Zeus hurled the bolt directly at Cronus. The explosion shook heaven and earth. Cronus fell. One by one, the remaining Titans were defeated. The age of the Titans had come to an end. The victorious Olympians imprisoned many of the defeated Titans in Tartarus, the same abyss where the Cyclopes and 100-handed ones had once suffered. To ensure they could never escape, the 100-handed ones became their eternal guards. Not every Titan was punished, however. Some, such as Oceanus, had remained neutral during the war, while others, including Themis and Mnemosyne, later found honored places among the new order. With the war finally over, Zeus and his siblings stood together. The old world had fallen. The new one was ready to begin. But one question remained. Who would rule the heavens? Who would command the seas? Who would reign over the land of the dead? The answer would shape every myth that followed. None of them could foresee how this choice would define the destiny of gods and mortals alike.